Welcome to the worst sports channel on YouTube, Hot Garbage Sports, with me, Coach Ryan D. Part 3 of our 3-part Kraken series. We are finally going to reveal my choices for the Seattle Expansion Kraken draft. In our first video, we talked about goaltenders. In our second video, we talked about free agents. The big key to know in this video or any Seattle Expansion mock draft is that one player can make the difference between what you are going to do for the next 19, 20, 25 players. There are certain ways you build a team, so stick with us to the end of the video. We are going to talk about the strategy that I would use if I was a Seattle Kraken. I think Ron Francis may be thinking along the same lines most great hockey minds are. Stay tuned, roll the intro.
Here's Lemieux, the center penalty coming up.
All right, so how do you win a Stanley Cup in today's NHL and become a successful team? You build from the net out. Net out, net out, net out. Goaltenders, then your defensemen, then you take a look at your centermen, and then you fill in some wingers. Gotta have a little bit of ebb and flow when you're building a team. So a couple days ago, it was mentioned that Chris Driedger would be the for sure lock from the Florida Panthers and signed by the Seattle Kraken. That may still happen, but the fact that Carey Price was left exposed has totally changed this draft for me, and I bet for a lot of people if you're selecting Price. Speaking of changing the draft and changing things for a lot of people, do me a favor and help change this channel a little bit by subscribing and liking this video. We've been on our way to 5,000. We love every single one of you here. Net out, that's where we're starting. Let's take a look at the Seattle Kraken expansion goaltenders that I think we're going to select. I think leading the Seattle Kraken is Carey Price for me. I understand there's an albatross of a contract here, but for me, Carey Price is the player that got the Montreal Canadiens to the Stanley Cup Finals. And with some of the key pieces that the Kraken can build around Price, the Kraken may be able to do what the Montreal Canadiens weren't able to do, and that is win a Stanley Cup with Carey Price in net. Who knows? There's a lot of talent available to them. How will they mesh and gel? I just don't see a way you can turn down Carey Price's marketability or what you gain from having him on the team. He becomes the #1 player on the team for at least 2 to 3 years. Sure, it's a big contract until he's 39, but really good goalies have played until they were 40. There's no question that Price can do this and enter the same annals. You said annals. Enter the annals of history, just like Brodeur and Waugh before him. I don't see why you wouldn't take this guy. And if you're sitting there thinking there's a fix in, or they're going to swap picks back and forth, they're going to pick Price just to send him back, not happening. The NHL has already stepped in and said that would be expansion tampering, and you are not allowed to do that. That means they are either picking Carey Price or taking a ransom to avoid picking Carey Price. And Montreal has some good players to pick. You still got Paul Byron, who is exposed with a really nice contract. Could add to the forwards, but really there's nobody else you'd rather have from Montreal, in my opinion, even though Byron is quite a good player being exposed. Next, I think Chris Driedger is going to be a solution for them in net going forward. I do believe they will sign Chris Driedger to a reasonable contract. But one of two things will happen with Driedger now. They're either going to trade Driedger because he's an NHL starter, or they'll end up keeping him as a reasonably priced backup who will in fact help Carey Price game manage. And Driedger might get 30, maybe even 40 games to make sure that Price stays healthy and ready for the playoffs. So Driedger is a guy you can lean on to win a lot of games and keep Carey Price healthy for a very extended period of time. Regardless of what happens, Seattle has the opportunity to have the #1 goaltending punch in the NHL today, especially after Marc-Andre Fleury gets traded from the Vegas Golden Knights. Finally, you have Ben Bishop and this guy named Decord from the NHL free agency pool, wherever he is from. Ben Bishop will likely be picked, one, because the Dallas Stars don't really have anybody else that I think is notable worth picking. Sure, you could take some prospects or some RFAs in there. So I do believe they're going to pick Ben Bishop and flip Ben Bishop to a team that requires a #1 goaltender. Looking at Pittsburgh, looking at Toronto. Guess we'll end up seeing, but I do think they're going to get a second or a third round pick back for Bishop, free choice in the draft. And I think they're going to flip Bishop before the draft night is over, because if you keep Bishop and Price, well, your salary cap situation looks pretty dicey, and they do have to be under the cap during the extension of the draft. So I think they'll end up flipping Bishop, getting that $5 million off the books like that, freeing up a little bit more cap space to pick some of the better forwards and defensemen that are available. Spent a lot of time on goalies because it is very important. So I am saying Price and Driedger are their 2 goalies going forward. Again, guys, it's an expansion draft. I'm not Ron Francis. Neither are you. We have no idea idea where he's going, but I think my logic is sound. So building from the net out, we're going to want to move on to defensemen, and your first pairing defensemen, especially your top 4, are a really big deal, but ensuring that you have 6 reliable, solid defensemen can win Stanley Cups. And there is no shortage of defensemen to be chosen for the Seattle Kraken here in this expansion draft. I actually have the Seattle Kraken selecting 11 defensemen in this draft. Anytime I struggled to think of what forward would I picked a defenseman every time. Defensemen are like gold. If you can have starting NHL defensemen in your top 6, you can trade these guys for really good picks and future prospects that come back. So I think they're going to take these 11. I think there's some free agent defensemen, as you can see, link above in our other video, out there on the market that they may be looking to hunt. What up, Dougie Hamilton? So this likely won't end up being the true first, second, and third pairings, but it just gives you an idea of how we ordered our 11 defensemen. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first pairing. Mark Giordano. This is a no-brainer to me. How can you not take the captain of the Calgary Flames? This guy has captain written all over him for the Seattle Kraken. He's got 2 years left to play for the Kraken. He is solid. He is reliable. He is a number 1 guy. He's a shutdown guy. You draft this guy all day. Now on the right-handed side, it gets a little bit weaker. There are some other right-handed defensemen we can pick, but I'm going to take Nick Jensen from the Washington Capitals. He's solid. He's going to pair really well with a guy like Giordano. Who knows if this will actually be the first pairing, but this is a very good-looking 2 picks from Washington and Calgary that I think could happen. Taking a look at our second pairing defenseman now, Jake Gardiner from the Carolina Hurricanes. Again, just like Giordano, veteran staple on the left side. I think this is a very good player to pick. It's a bit of a contract at $4.5 million, but you got some room to play with. Maybe end up trading Jake Gardiner to a team that needs a number 1 left-sided defenseman, because we're going to be a little bit left D heavy in these 11 that we're picking. But since we're not doing trades in this video, we're just going to slot him right into the second pair where he belongs. And that leaves Troy Stecher from the Detroit Red Wings. This guy's a steal, absolute steal. $1.7 million in his contract, right shooting defenseman from the Detroit Red Wings. To me, you take this guy all day, every day. That's an easy pick. And then finally, pairing number 3, we're going to put 2 left-handed defensemen here because they're the 2 best defensemen, in my opinion, left out of these 11. And that is Pettersson, Pittsburgh. Sorry, you got to lose a defenseman here. Pettersson's got a little bit of an albatross of a contract, just over $4 million. But he's solid, he's reliable. And you know what? If you actually take a look at the median salary for a 5'6" defenseman in the NHL, it's like $3.5 million. So this isn't too bad. Defensemen cost money. They do. So I think you bring this guy in, and maybe again, like Jake Gardiner, because we have a lot of left-handed D that costs a lot, maybe we end up trading this guy out. But I still think that this is the pick from the Pittsburgh Penguins, wherever he slots in. And finally, that leaves us with Carson Soucy from the Minnesota Wild. Carson is an easy pick to make here from the Wild. The Wild really struggled on which defenseman they were gonna protect. The Wild are in all kinds of trouble right now. Kirill Kaprizov, as we kind of wander and look at squirrels over here, is turning down a $72 million contract because he wants to make $80 to $88 million. This is insane. Russian players. I have no idea what's going through their head sometimes. I guess he could go back to the KHL, do whatever he wants, but like, yikes, they got to get Kaprizov signed, and losing Carson, well, that one stings too, but I guess at least you keep Dumba. I don't know. But either way, I think this is an easy pick for the Kraken to make. So there's our top 6 right now. Let's take a look at our other defensemen that we're going to pick as well too. So from Arizona, and this dumpster fire of a team, seriously, how can they be this bad year to year? Way to take on the Andrew Ladd contract to hit the cap floor again. Get this team out of Arizona. It's a freaking joke. Just move them. Like, I get it. The Phoenix area has a lot of Americans living in there, and they gave us Austin Matthews. They're just clinging on to this so that they can sign that area for TV rights. That's the only reason they're hanging on to Phoenix, Glendale, and Arizona. There is a ridiculous stat out there that the people of Arizona are just paying a massive amount of tax in, year out, to float these terrible, terrible sports teams and these just arena projects and everything that's going on there. I have no idea. I thought this was, I just thought this was the United States. I just didn't think you guys did things that way, you know, independent stuff. Whatever. Arizona, dumpster fire of a team. And yeah, I am bitter because that was the Jets 1.0 and just went to die down there and everybody's defending them forever and Bettman. Anyways, the pick, Lyubushkin, is a very good pick from Arizona. Okay, he's just a pick from Arizona. Then we have Hayden Fleury from the Ducks. Boy, I wish these guys were still the Mighty Ducks. Anyways, Hayden Fleury, I think, is a pick from the Ducks. There's a couple different ways you can go from the Ducks, but how can you turn down a cheap young defenseman like this, former 7th overall draft pick? Okay, Jeremy Lauzon from the Boston Bruins. I think this is going to be their pick. I know that Nick Richie is available, and Nick Richie's a very good player, but I think Nick Richie is a replaceable level talent on the NHL rosters that we see today. He's an NHL staple. He's young. He's big. He can play on the power play, but I have a really hard time turning down defensemen, especially young defensemen like this. And it's starting to give me flashbacks back to the fact that Shea Theodore went over to the Vegas Golden Knights as kind of like a throw in, like, please don't touch our player when making a deal. He's just this extra guy, and now he's a freak of nature. Jeremy Lauzon might be that guy. Nick Richie's replaceable. I'm going to take Lauzon. I'm going to regret this one. I'm going to regret it. It's going to be Richie, but hey, here we are. And then finally, Will Borgen. I mean, that's who I would take from Buffalo. Also a dumpster fire of a team. Yeah, I could get Zygmunt Jurgensen, whatever his name is. I don't know how to say it, but I want to take Will Borgen just because there's going to be salary cap considerations at this point, and I think Borgen's got a reasonably bright future. You need some depth pieces, plus he's a right-handed shot. And then finally from the Hawks, Nikita Zadorov. Good cheap contract. Can play on the right side, can play on the left side. I'm taking Zadorov from the Hawks. All right, so our goalies and defensemen give us a lot of depth here, and we have multiple trade pieces in both categories. I said this is going to be the black market for goalie trades and defenseman trades. So bring on the first, second, and third round picks in the next 2 or 3 years for these teams to take these players into their locker room and go forth and win a Stanley Cup. Seattle's going to keep 6, 7 of them, 8 of them maybe, but we could definitely see 2 to 5 pieces in the goalies and the defensemen being moved together. So that's my theoretical strategy. That's what I would be doing if I was Ron Francis, but I'm not. I'm just a guy on YouTube. Now let's take a look at the forwards. First line for forwards, we're going to pick JVR, Max Domi, and yeah, we're going to select Tarasenko. I don't know how in today's NHL you can turn down scoring. Normally, I'd like to build through the middle. That means I'd be looking at a guy like Ryan Johansson or even Matt Duchene to anchor my first line center position. But they're very, very expensive, and we already took Carey Price in the back. If we didn't take Carey Price, I'd be looking at one of those 2 guys to fill out my number 1 role because I think both of them can still be that. However, because we did take Price, and I think Price is more valuable than having any one of those 2 guys, we slot Domi into this spot. It was a reasonable pick. He's young. He's got 1 year left. And JVR, all he does is score. The guy is still a scorer at 32 years old, and I think Tarasenko could have a massive career revitalization with the Kraken. You just don't lose scoring touch, and you need to put pucks in the net, and I think that the Kraken are going to have a lot of opportunities for grinding forwards and role-playing forwards, you know, Ron Francis guys, but you need someone who can score, so that is why I have these 3 as our first line. They'll slot in somewhere else, but this is who I think Philly, Columbus, and the Blues lose to the Kraken in the draft. All right, second line forwards, Palat, Kerfoot, and Bailey. Yes. Hey, Josh Bailey will never be sung in New York again. I don't know why you would take Eberle over Bailey. I think Bailey is a better player. He's got a smaller contract hit. He plays 2-way. Yes, I just said you need scoring touch, but if you're going to take Tarasenko and JVR, I think you go ahead and put in Josh Bailey, who had more points than Jordan Eberle this year. He had a better playoff run than Jordan Eberle this year, and he gives you the ability to flex down to the third line if you're looking for a checker. The second line is where he lives and absolutely can flex up to the first line in an emergency situation. He's so versatile, more versatile than Eberle, so I'm all about Bailey all day here. Alexander Kerfoot is a very easy choice from the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have to start rounding out that center line. I really wish I could move Kerfoot down to my third line role, but again, we're going to be a little weak at center because we've taken a couple big wingers who can score, as well as Carey Price, and then Ondrej Palat. There are so many choices from the Tampa Bay Lightning. We could have taken Yanni Gourde here as well to help fill out our center role, so we could have 2 third line centers in Yanni Gourde and Alexander Kerfoot, but I decided to go with Ondrej Palat because Palat is just an elite player. He can score. He's won cups. He's just, again, this gives you a heck of a top 6 and a line 1 and a line 1B that you can almost interchange depending on who's hot. So because Tarasenko is no lock to completely return back to form, but I think he's going to, we end up taking 2 other wingers in Bailey and Palat that can easily slide up to that first line. Also, you want to have a lot of options in your top 6 to mix and match with chemistry. Who knows if JVR, Tarasenko, and Domi's the role? Maybe Kerfoot's your first line center. Maybe Bailey switches out with Tarasenko. You never know until you get to see the chemistry on ice. So to me, these are the top 6 that I would be picking. And yes, Tampa Bay has some really deep sleepers that are sitting in there, but I don't know if I can take them with Gourde and Palat just sitting there staring me in the face. We'll see what Francis does. Okay, line 3, Mason Appleton from the Jets. Dylan DeMello is a good player to take from the Winnipeg Jets, but I don't think as we approach that salary cap that they'll be taking DeMello. Now, if they did take DeMello and then ended up wanting to trade him before the draft night was over, that would make a lot of sense to me. Or you take DeMello and trade one of the other 11 defensemen that I named. DeMello's a very good defenseman, so it is a really tough decision for the Winnipeg Jets, but I end up taking Mason Appleton because Mason Appleton could be like William Karlsson. He could end up being like Alex Tuch. He could be a huge player and even move into the top 6 for a long period of time for the Seattle Kraken. So I am for sure taking Mason Appleton because he's got a scoring upside. Sissons, I'm ending up taking from Nashville. Again, I need a winger center combo here because I'm running out of room. I need some centers to play in here. I'd rather have him move to the wing as a depth piece, but he's going to play center at this point because we had to burn a position. And it's not great to burn the centerman, but we're building a reasonable team here. So that's who I would take. And from the Colorado Avalanche, Jonas Donskoy, I just don't see how you don't take this guy. This is an easy pick from the Avs. This is a guy that can easily move into your top 6. So between him and Appleton, I really like this third line. Not a giant fan of Sissons, but I don't hate him. So here's our top 9. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our 4th line. We have Kara in the middle. I mean, this guy to me screams 4th line center, or maybe even 3rd line center, maybe 3rd line, but Kara from the Edmonton Oilers is absolutely going to slot in. That is the pick I would be making from Edmonton all day. Brendan Lemieux goes to another team. Like, I want this guy to be good, but at the end of the day, he's a Lemieux. Can be a bit of a knob. There's some really not great stories that always come out from every organization he plays with, but still, he blocks a lot of shots. He's an agitator. He just fits in really well at line 4 or a line 3 role. He's a really good penalty killer, so I don't know how you can't take this guy onto your team. Hopefully he eventually gets the message and checks in a bit, but maybe not. Maybe the apple just doesn't fall too far from the tree. But I like both Lemieux. I just like the way they play the game. Like, oh my God, you guys are gonna hate me for that. But I do. I think they're part of hockey. I do. I just think the Lemieux are part of hockey, and they can be cheap shot artists, and they can be dangerous to play against. But you know what? I don't make the rules for the NHL. The NHL hasn't booted them out yet, so who am I to complain? I think you need agitators like this all over. Sure, you can call them scum and rink rats all you want, but I'm taking Lemieux. And then Ryan Donato from the San Jose Sharks. To me, from San Jose, this is just an easy pick. Okay, that leaves us with 3 more forwards to add to our other forwards group. So we're going to go with Merkley, Lind, and Goodrow. Merkley and Goodrow from, the New York area, from Jersey, from the Rangers. These are fine players. I know one is an unrestricted free agent, but I think he'll end up signing. Good depth piece. And Cole Lind from the Vancouver Canucks. Oh, the Vancouver Canucks. Like, when I look at this protected list from the Vancouver Canucks, I just want to, it is not good. It is not good who is left available for this draft. There's no depth in Vancouver. So Vancouver really needs to start building. I guess I'd take Cole Lind. Brayden Holtby is an interesting pick here if you're going to look at building goalies. Maybe you take Holtby over Ben Bishop, but I don't know, unless you can flip Holtby right away and stay under the cap while doing this, I don't see it happening because I just think there's better goalies available. I'd rather have Quick and Bishop over Holtby. So there's 3 big names that are sitting out there. You got Quick, you got Bishop, you got Holtby, you got Matt Murray. They're all kind of the same guy. I know they're different, but they're all that larger cap hit at the same rough age and produce you about the same thing. So you can't take them all. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Brayden Holtby. All right, so that rounds out our 30 players for the Seattle expansion draft. We're getting a bunch of them wrong. Of course, we're going to get a bunch of them wrong. Everybody's going to get a bunch of them wrong because, like I said, when you pick one piece to build around, it is going to change your entire formula. So is Ron Francis going to pick a defenseman to build around? Is he going to pick a couple forwards to build around? Maybe it is going to be one of the bigger centerpieces. He's going to sign a big free agent before the expansion draft to build around, say like a Dougie Hamilton. Or is he going to look to goaltenders? That Carey Price contract is an absolute albatross, and by removing Price from the roster and rolling with one of the 5 million guys like Bishop, Quick, maybe a 6 million guy like Murray. Yeah, don't pick Murray. You could really open up some cap space to get that number 1 center if you really want like a Rhino Johansson. Rhino. Ryan Johansson and see if he could resurge for you and carry that first line. Tarasenko's kind of an interesting pick, whether you're going to take him or not. James Van Riemsdyk's an interesting pick. I think JVR is a much more solid choice out of all the bigger contracts that we're looking at. And then, yeah, you're looking at guys like Gabriel Landeskog and Alexander Ovechkin out there, but I don't think those guys are going to move, so I didn't consider them. You let me know your Seattle expansion draft, and thus concludes our 3-part series on the Seattle Kraken. We'll see you Wednesday. Let's see who they pick.